All right, so our buddy Mac, good politic guy, tweeted this video that I want to share with you. He says, socialists are the real silent majority. So what you're about to see is, somebody did this video. The title of the video is, I Convince MAGA to Love Communism. So this guy is basically trolling Trump supporters. I guess he went to some Trump rally or some pro-Trump event. And what he does is, he pairs, like, Republican tribalism with flat-out left-wing policy goals. And the way he presents it, these people can't help themselves, and they're like, well, that sounds awesome, man. I'm on board with that. Let's do all those things. But really what he's... the policy specifics are either socialist or communist. So this video gives me extreme mixed emotions. So we'll get into more on that in a minute, but let's watch the video.
We need to get rid of these corporations and these law enforcement agencies if we want to stop the socialist agenda.
Exactly. I don't know if socialist is the exact word that I would use. I would call it communist agenda.
Communist agenda.
There really is going to be some redistribution of wealth because they stole our wealth. So there is going to be some.
There should be a redistribution of wealth.
There's going to be, yeah.
So in order to get rid of communism,
you know what? I'm going to let the whole thing play, then we'll go back through it.
get rid of the big banks.
Yeah.
Get rid of big pharma.
Right.
What else? Big tech. Landlords that like are coming in and buying like hundreds of properties. You don't even know what
Right,
corporation.
like China is doing it, and Bill Gates.
Zillow.
Yeah.
We need to get rid of pharma, big pharma, Pfizer, Moderna.
That's right. You know what?
Amazon, Pfizer, Moderna, Apple. We need to get rid of the big pharma companies, the corporations, the big banks, in order to stop the communist agenda.
You know what? Yeah, these big businesses, Amazon, this is the playbook for communism coming into our country.
We got to get rid of the banks if we want to stop the socialist agenda.
Why do we need money anyways? I mean, honestly, I don't see why we need money. We can trade goods. I have a craft. I have a lot of craft.
We're gonna shut down the country ourselves.
So the workers of this country need to get together, go on a general strike. Workers of the world unite, okay, strike, and stop the communist agenda.
Man. Wow. We're going to go back through that claim by claim here, but again, shout out to this guy. I Convince MAGA to Love Communism is the title of the video. I don't know who this was, but this was fucking brilliant. I also like this comment underneath. Dogeman says, honestly, the American left would be extremely successful if they weren't forced to use the scary words like socialism and communism. Just need some rebranding, and the path to socialism would be far easier. Just call it freedomism or something, and they'll be on board. I fucking love that comment. Yes. On this channel, we support freedomism. In fact, I'm going to rename my own specific political ideology and brand, freedomism. Thank you very much, Dogeman. That was awesome and correct. All right, so now let's go point by point here.
We need to get rid of these corporations and these law enforcement agencies if we want to stop the socialist agenda.
Exactly. I don't know.
All right, so there's so much to say. The reason why this guy is on board with getting rid of law enforcement agencies is probably because in his mind he sees the FBI as being unfair to Donald Trump, so now I'm anti-law enforcement. That almost certainly is why he's signing on to let's get rid of the law enforcement agencies. But if somebody on the left said, let's get rid of the law enforcement agencies, he would say, this fucking crazy, insane nonsense. And, they attack lefties for defund the police, even though a majority of lefties don't even believe in defund the police, but they're like, you're crazy, you want to get rid of law enforcement. And then they turn around and they're like, yes, I would like to get rid of law enforcement. And also the point about, we need to get rid of corporations. Look, in their mind, since they think this guy's, in their tribe with them, they think he's saying, we need to get rid of the corporations because they've gone woke. That's the way they interpret this. So, again, it's obviously not, full agreement on the real specifics. A lefty would want to get rid of corporations because they're incredibly... And I don't even know. There are plenty of people on the left who probably don't want to, quote-unquote, get rid of corporations. They just want to rein them in. They just want to, use our antitrust laws to break up the monopolies, have better safety laws, higher wages, more overtime pay, and things of that nature. So they don't agree totally on the substance. But it's interesting that the right used to harp away on how they hate, quote-unquote, big government. But now, because corporations are so obviously terrible, and because they've they now believe that all the corporations are super woke. Now you have like some anti-corporatism on the right wing, among the right wing base, which is interesting. But again, you have to understand it's for different reasons that they believe these things. It's not the same reasons that you believe these things. It's not tied to like how exploitative these corporations are and how low they pay, and it's not tied to the same thing. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, let's continue.
Socialist is the exact word that I would use. I would call it communist agenda.
Communist agenda.
Oh, by the way, the guy's name is at the bottom right here. I want to give him credit. Let me.
Communist agenda.
Communist agenda.
Walter Masterson.
There really is going to be some redistribution of wealth because they stole our wealth. So there is going to be some.
There should be a redistribution of wealth.
Going to be, yeah.
So in order to.
I love that point. Look, there's no other way to spin that. The people who are pro redistribution of wealth, that is a left-wing goal. There's no way to spin that. That just is a left-wing goal. It's one of the cornerstones of left-wing politics. It's like, the system's all fucked up. It's not a meritocracy. The top 1%, the owner class, have way more wealth and income than your average people. We need to, get rid of these rough edges here. Make it more equal. Not to say everybody should make the exact same amount of money. I honestly don't know anybody who makes that claim. But that, people at the bottom, it should be a reasonable floor in a rich country where you don't live in abject poverty and you don't know where your next fucking meal is coming from. The floor should be reasonable and fair and just, where you give people a chance at making it. So give people, the old cliche saying is equal opportunity. Well, how do you have equal opportunity? You have to give people healthcare. You have to give people education. You have to give people the bare minimum basics met. So that's not too much to ask for. Basically, all of the social democracies, all of the Scandinavian countries have achieved that. And so here you have a MAGA person like, yeah, that's what we want to do. But again, understand something. The reason why they're agreeing with him is because he's giving them all of the cultural signifiers that they like. Hey, he's wearing like a Republican hat, and he approaches me like he's one of us. And so now, since they let their guard down in that moment, so he could say fucking anything and they would agree with it. But if you have me or some other actual lefty who's known to be a lefty walk up to them and say these things, then they'd fight every single word. So really, this is both a very depressing video, but also a hopeful video. It's depressing because this is just rank tribalism. They say, this guy's in the tribe, so whatever he says, I'm going to agree with, right? So it's just partisan brainworms and rank tribalism. That's why it's depressing. But the reason that it's hopeful is that, like I always tell you guys, if you go issue for issue, if you get rid of all of the partisan signifiers and just go issue for issue, yes, even the right-wing base will agree to some very basic things, like a higher minimum wage, for example. Now the polls even show the Republican base, over 50%, are pro-union. So, again, that's hopeful, but the thing that's really blocking us from making this change is the partisan brainworms, the extreme tribalism, but more importantly, the corruption. Because corporations pay our politicians, and that's why they never serve the people. And they only serve their donors. So you'd have to get the money out of the system, and you'd have to find a way to, limit the extreme hatred on both sides, and have rhetoric that actually unifies everybody to come together. Because, again, on the actual issues, they agree with us. But they're only agreeing with this guy because he's approaching them like I'm one of you. So again, he could say anything and they would agree with it. As long as he doesn't praise a Democrat, then they're going to agree with him.
Get rid of communism means get rid of the big banks.
Yeah.
Get rid of big pharma.
Right.
What else? Big tech. Landlords that are coming in and buying hundreds of properties. You don't even know what corporations.
Like China is doing it, and Bill Gates.
Zillow.
Yeah.
You need to get rid of pharma, big pharma, Pfizer, Moderna.
That's right. You know what?
Amazon, Pfizer, Moderna, Apple. We need to get rid of the big pharma companies, the corporations, the big banks, in order to stop the communist agenda.
You know what? Yeah, these big business.
Okay, so what I'd want to ask these people who are agreeing to this is okay, you do understand what you're agreeing to, right? Because to quote-unquote get rid of the pharma companies, for example, you're not actually getting rid of them, you're just nationalizing them. That's the only way to get rid of them while still having those functions actually done in society. Still have the creation of the drugs and things of that nature. So, I agree. I think big pharma should be nationalized. I don't think there should be profit in a field that's so important where it's been proven profit does not actually improve what's going on. Did you know, like, every drug in the past 2 decades has been made with government money? So, like, universities do the research, create these new drugs, and then pharma companies just swoop in and buy up the rights, the intellectual property rights, and then they basically price gouge you on the other side. So you don't need big pharma. They're just an unnecessary parasite, a mafia middleman that just steals from us. So you don't need them. But do they understand what they're agreeing to? If you're getting rid of the pharma companies, that means the government fills that role. That means it becomes nationalized. Now, if they knew that part, they probably wouldn't agree with it. And also, if they understood at all that all these policy ideas are left-wing ideas, then they probably would back off it. Because again, they're only agreeing because he's giving them the cultural signifiers. I'm with you. I'm one of you guys. But as soon as they realize it's like a prank, they would flip on every single one of these points. Because for them, these are the hardcore Trump people. For them, it has nothing to do with specific policy. It's more about, like, they're in a fucking cult. I wish I had a happier, view of this and perspective of this, but I think I'm giving you the right one. But it is amazing how they could be so close yet so fucking far. They're so close yet so far, because if it was Bernie versus Trump, and Bernie saying literally everything that this guy's saying to them, they'd be like, no, because he's a communist, he's a socialist, he's evil. But since this guy's like, I'm one of you, and here are the things I believe, they're like, yeah, that sounds good. So, wild, man, wild stuff.
This is Amazon. This is the playbook for communism coming into our country.
We got to get rid of the banks if we want to stop the socialist agenda.
Why do we need money anyways? I mean, honestly.
This one's gone way to the left of me. Why do we need money? Post-money society.
I don't see why we need money. We can trade goods. I have a craft. I have a lot of craft.
We're gonna shut down the country ourselves.
So the workers of this country need to get together, go on a general strike.
Workers of the world unite to fight communism, which is workers of the world uniting.
Workers of the world unite, okay, strike, and, stop the communist agenda.
Great video from this guy. Look, I hate to say it, but you could absolutely do the same thing if you went to, like, a Hillary Clinton rally in 2016, or if you go to a Joe Biden rally today. You could absolutely do the same thing where you tell them, like, I'm a proud Democrat, and I believe we need to shut down this border and give the jobs to Americans and stop having immigrants take our jobs. And I love that Biden did that. And they'd be like, me too. So, like, it works both ways is my point. I do think, generally speaking, these people are more uninformed than whoever would be at, a Biden rally or whatever. But you could still get this one over on them. If you give somebody with all the cultural signifiers, wearing a Biden hat, wearing a Biden shirt, and you make all these, like, right-wing policy. Wasn't it great when Joe Biden cut taxes? They'd be like, yeah! So I do think it can work both ways, but I do think overall these people are less informed. But again, I'm massively hopeful and depressed watching this video at the exact same time. Because they're so fucking close, but they're also so fucking far. I know that if you get rid of all of the partisan stuff, and you just give them a list of policies and say, which do you support? I know they'd be further left than they realize. But I also know the only reason why they're agreeing with this guy is because he's wearing a MAGA hat, and he's like, I'm one of you guys, and then he says all the lefty things. The second, if he went up to them wearing a Bernie shirt and saying the same shit, they'd be like, fuck you, So, I just feel like the partisan stuff sort of scrambles everybody's brain. The hardcore partisan stuff, the culture war stuff, it just makes it so that they don't think critically about any of it. It's just like, who are my people and how can I fit in with them? And in this instance, this guy saying, I'm one of you and here's what I like. So like, yes! So anyway, so close yet so fucking far. I'm both extremely depressed and extremely hopeful watching it. It's just a wild video, man. Credit to this guy. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take zero ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.